All right, if you want to do it. All right. So, we all take world history in some kind of forum, usually in high school, or if we're in college, at some point you have to take something in that manner. And during that class, you have to learn a lot about a lot of civilizations that you probably don't remember. My example is you always have to learn all the different dynasties of China, and they always create mnemonic devices for you to learn, but you never really remember them. And so I'm going to take one of the most obscure civilizations that you probably don't remember. It's got about a sentence in the AP history book that I looked at that mentions it, and then it's gone. And we're going to talk about that. If you've heard of Rome, which you probably have, you may have heard of a small little city-state called Carthage, which existed at the same time, 300 to 200 BC, and Rome and Carthage got into a little bit of a tiff, and that may be why you've heard of them. But we're going to look at who Carthage was, who the Carthaginians were, where they came from, and just kind of give you an idea about a sentence in the AP World History book. So, who were they? What was Carthage? Carthage was originally founded by a group of people called the Phoenicians, who were a very good trading people, very good at shipbuilding, that came from modern-day coastal Syria, Lebanon, that area. And they founded Carthage as a city, but also as a trading port, because they had this wonderful eastern to western trading system going on that connected Spain all the way back to the Middle East. And they needed lots of spots to stop and refuel, not refuel, but resupply and refit their ships along the way. And Carthage was one of those. The name Carthage actually means new city. When their original home cities were cut off by the Persians, which you may have heard of as well, the different colonies that were formed had to live and do things on their own, and Carthage, because of its wonderful position, became very prominent and flourished, became a very large city, eventually began to dominate some of the other cities around it, creating what is known as the Carthaginian Empire. So, at around this time that Carthage had secured a great deal of its empire, including Spain, a lot of the Mediterranean islands such as Sicily, Corsica and Sardinia, and a lot of coastal Africa, Rome had also started doing its empire building. And eventually the two met in Sicily and did a little bit of headbutting in what history knows as the Punic Wars. Punic is what the Romans called the Carthaginians. Phoenician, Punic, it's kind of how they got the name. There's 3 of these wars, each more depressing than the last, due to the fact that these were essentially the ancient world's equivalent of the world wars. This was a titanic life-or-death struggle between 2 powers that was unrivaled until really modern history. It actually has, the first Punic War has a candidate for one of the largest naval battles in the history of mankind. The First Punic War is known for being kind of similar to World War I in having a very large stalemate. Rome had some victories, Carthage had some victories, lots of very silly botched attempts in which Rome actually lost an entire fleet in a storm, which is not very good, and actually had to come to its citizens and ask for money to buy a new fleet, which was very embarrassing. Lots of teetering back and forth in that one. Eventually, Carthage, having gotten to the end of its rope, decided that enough was enough, and it sued for peace, getting decent peace terms out of the Romans. But because they'd spent so much money on the war and couldn't pay their troops, the troops revolted, and then they had to fight another 2 years of war in what is known as some of the bloodiest fighting in ancient world history. And during that time, Rome decided to be a sneaky little devil and took Corsica and Sardinia from the Carthaginians, which led to a little bit of Carthage not liking the Romans after that, which leads up to the Second Punic War, in which you may have heard of the name Hannibal Barca, because he is one of, today considered one of the finest military strategists in world history, and is still studied today, in which he managed to take his entire army and cross the Alps, which was unheard of at the time, and land in Italy and stay in Italy for, I believe, 15 years. Eventually, though, he was unable to bring Rome to its knees, and he was forced to return to Carthage in Africa when it was threatened by a Roman counter-invasion. He lost at the Battle of Zama, and Carthage was forced to make terms with Rome, and received very, very unfavorable terms in which essentially they had no fleet, lost all of their lands, and could not even have portions of their army be built up at a certain time, and could not declare war on anyone openly without Rome's permission, which led up to the Third Punic War, in which the neighboring tribes around Carthage decided this would be a fantastic opportunity to start raiding them, and Carthage decided to raise an army to fight off these raiders. And because of that, Rome used the opportunity to lay siege to Carthage, enter it after 3 years, and enslave 50,000 and kill the rest of the civilians in there, wiping Carthage from the face of the map. You may have heard that Rome salted the fields of Carthage, which is a myth that was perpetuated just to show how much Rome hated the Carthaginians. So, after that, that's kind of the highlight of Carthage, that life or death struggle with Rome. But why is it important? Because it's kind of a footnote in history. You don't see it very often. But really, it's very important because it shaped Rome to be what it was. It was Rome's archenemy. And you'll see in a lot of the ancient texts, Rome talking about the Carthaginians and talking about how they were horrible people and, all of the horrible things that they did. And it really shaped the Romans to be who they were and shaped a lot of their systems, shaped their military, certainly. And we take a lot of our systems from the Romans. We look at them for inspiration. We look at them for a lot of things. So in essence, a lot of the Carthaginian legacy was left to the Romans, and we take a lot of the Roman legacy. In addition to that, Carthage also had great advances in shipbuilding. They were essentially the IKEA of shipbuilders. They had great advances in agriculture. They had great advances in engineering. They built some of the most magnificent harbors that the world has ever seen, some of which are still there that you can see today on Google Earth, actually. And yeah, they are a footnote in history, but they really shouldn't be. And I hope this was interesting. They're very interesting to me. And thank you for your time.